Realistic sound design and effects have always played a key role in making the Need for Speed franchise a success. With this year's edition of a central storyline, cinematic sound became an essential part of making Need for Speed The Run an epic Hollywood-style adventure.
One really neat thing that we actually tried to do then this year is, of course, make that car come alive, like to the extreme. Each car is recorded on an average between 8 to 12 mics just for onboard. Anything that makes a specific sound on the car, we'll try to record it. We'll place mics exactly near the intake. We'll place one near the firewall. We'll place one over the top of the engine. We'll place one near the turbo. We don't just place a mic there. It has to be the most specific mic that will capture that part or that element of the car as best as it can be. For example, if the car has side exhaust and you would drive 100 miles an hour, you get nothing but wind. So we had to develop new ways to record the sound perfectly for all of those spots. Then we have 3 to 4 recorders on the side, but cars drive by at 100 miles an hour 2 feet away from them, just to basically capture the perfect by sounds. We didn't end just by doing an engine. We didn't just end by doing some sputters and some turbos and some other stuff. We really wanted to make you feel like you were moving, like this car was into space, like this car was traveling between all of this other stuff. Because we're using the Frostbite 2 engine, it enables pretty much anything that you could be doing on a Hollywood mix stage. We can stream anything, we can play anything, we can make it sound as big as we want, we can make it sound as small as we want, etc.
With Frostbite 2, a player is in direct control of the sound mix they hear as they make various choices throughout the game.
Our car here, for example, is not just, a recorded sound effect. It's made up of layers upon layers of sounds that are listening to physics and they're listening to the context of the game. Essentially, you're creating just the rules and the player is creating the mix, and it's different every time somebody plays the game.
I need a status update on that chopper now!
This is all the logic that goes into just playing this tire skid sounds. Each tire has its own physics information and what type of surface it's on. The sound gets processed and then sent out into the main mix of the game. This is just the skids. You can hear some of the reverb in the background. As you go faster, the skids change in quality, change in sound. If you're going 100 miles an hour sideways, it'll have a completely different sound. It's reacting in the way we feel a human would actually be applying the throttle and brake based on the inputs that the player is giving.
A lot of effort went into making the cars sound as real as possible as they speed down the highway at 200 miles per hour. Just as much effort went into blowing them up.
Because this game has a lot of explosions and crashes, you can of course just play a crash and play an explosion, but for us it's all about how do you experience as a player these crashing explosions. So yes, we did go out and recorded about 50 cars that were just being dropped from about 100 foot down. Okay, boring, honestly. So of course we have to take liberties to make it sound bigger, more exciting. But there's only so far you can go. We had to come up with some new ways in order to make these feel more hyped, more real, much more visceral. If something is so loud that your ears just shut down, how loud is that? Now, if an explosion would happen next to your ear, how intense do you feel this sound? So what we actually started to do at times is take stuff away, thereby making it sound even louder than it was before.
Being able to exit your car during gameplay meant a whole new challenge for the Need for Speed sound design team.
Part of the more cinematic, serious, intimate feel of this game is more believable voices.
You head around front, I'll cover the back.
Got it.
It's similar to previous games in that we have cops and some of the cop chatter that you're probably used to.
This guy's trying to run me off the road. We'll update.
What's different though is that we have a main character this year. You see his face, you hear his voice, and you can get out of the car. We get early sort of storyboards of what it's going to be like. We break down what we need from the actor, so we need an effort for this particular movement, we need a strain, we need a reach, we need this and that. When you put in the vocalizations, it sort of gives you that connection with Jax.
Having a character that has a voice in our game is a big leap for Need for Speed. The character's not an overwhelming presence in the game, but you're no longer just watching an empty car drive across the screen. That's allowed us to bring a lot more dramatic, emotional elements to the sound of Need for Speed.
Hands up, Boot 6, come back, get back!
Running, jumping, and punching were also fairly new challenges for the Need for Speed team to overcome.
This is just all our hits. So anything that's just kind of a big impact. We might take a literal punch sound and we'll find some other sounds, maybe some explosions or some, car drops or some really low, like subwoofer kind of bangs, and we'll kind of layer them all up just to build up that emotion and that drama that we need.
Now let's take a look at what happens when all of these sounds are combined into one explosive cinematic scene.
The first big impact moment in Death from Above is you have this intense racing going on through the streets of Chicago, and then out of nowhere you get T-boned by the mob. So bam, it's this metal on metal jarring experience that really sort of makes you stop and think, like, what the hell is going on here? And then his only course of action is to run up the stairs in the building. You've got these little beats of footsteps, and he's trying to jump this chasm from building to building, and all of a sudden this helicopter looms up out of nowhere, and you hear it, and it starts shooting, and it's like a holy crap moment. The base of the helicopter and then the sound of the bullets hitting the rooftops is pretty stark. And then the next experience is that he has to get a cop car to be able to get out of the city alive. He's got to secure that car, and then the big action moment is when the chopper is firing on him. When you're driving that car and you first hear those bullets and hear those chopper blades whirring, it gets your heart rate pumping. Now, after you've eluded the helicopter, sort of, this gas tanker explodes in front of you. And then it's quiet. There's small kind of orchestral sounds to set the tone, and then all of a sudden the camera zooms in and you hear this shrill train horn. It's amazing to see consumers play that, because at E3 that was the demo, and it's like their eyes were like, oh my gosh, I gotta get out of this car now. You're freaked out, feeling relatively helpless inside that car.
The Hollywood blockbuster sounds of Need for Speed: The Run helps make it a cinema-style racing experience unrivaled by any other racing game.